I'll have you know, I went to, I had a very nice shirt jacket thing set up for tonight. And then I left it in the car. I was gonna, 'cause it was so sweating, so I left it in the car at the airport today. So I went to there's a place, suit store or something, just here, just around the corner. And there were two very helpful men. They were like, "Oh, we can totally fix the stupid way that you look." That's why I look sharp right now, because they totally set me up to look sharp tonight. So I was wearing my Ankiel jersey.
Okay, sorry. Hello, everyone. I think you might have an idea of where you are, but this is Left Bank Books presents author of the Edgar nominated and Alex Award-winning How Lucky, Will Leitch, who will discuss his new compelling and propulsive novel, The Time Has Come. Tonight, he will be in conversation with his co-host for the Seeing Red podcast, sportswriter and sports radio personality, Bernie Miklasz. I want to thank you all so much for being here tonight. We do close to 200 author events per year. I am the event coordinator for Left Bank Books. We are able to do that because of your support. So when you come out, when you show up to an event, when you buy a book, all of that helps us tell New York that people in St. Louis love books. They love to support author events. So thank you so much for being here. And we do have quite a few fantastic events lined up for June, and a lot of really incredible events coming up in the fall. So be sure to keep an eye out, sign up for our email newsletter, pay attention to social media. You are going to be excited for some of these events that we have in the fall. And all the time. Like, we still have, this is the last event for the month. So everything else is in June.
So we're not doing this tomorrow?
Oh, yeah, that's great. Tomorrow I will actually bring drinks. When you buy a book from Left Bank Books, it goes back into your local economy. Not only does it help us produce this incredible event series, but it keeps the streets paved. It keeps the libraries free. It keeps the parks free. So thank you all so much for supporting local, for supporting Left Bank Books. I am going to read a blurb from Kevin Wilson, who is incredible. We have hosted him before.
He's the best.
He's the best, yeah. Kevin Wilson says, Will Leitch has written another compelling and propulsive novel that I could not put down. What makes him such an amazing writer is his keen eye for what makes us human. All the seemingly invisible threads that connect us and those shocking moments when we're pulled together and forced to reckon with the world. Leitch is as empathetic a writer as they come, and I trust him to guide me through any danger, any story, and know I'll come out of it with something special. And if you did not want to buy this book before now, I hope you do, because that is really an incredible price.
Okay. Oh no, you got some more.
I still have to introduce you.
That's me, Mr. Yard Dog.
All right. I will let them continue the discussion about the book, but I will introduce our fantastic guests for the evening. Bernie Miklasz is an American sports writer and sports radio personality. I think a few of you might be fans. He currently hosts the weekday afternoon show on 590 The Fan. He was the lead sports columnist at the St. Louis Post-Dispatch from 1999 to 2015. He previously hosted the morning show on 101 ESPN and in St. Louis until May 1st, 2020. Miklasz is a native of Baltimore, Maryland, and moved to St. Louis in 1985 to cover professional football for the Post-Dispatch. That's for your trivia. He has also worked at the Baltimore News American and the Dallas Morning News. And our guest this evening, Will Leitch, is a contributing editor at New York Magazine and the founder of the late sports website Deadspin. He also writes regularly for the New York Times, Washington Post, NBC News, Medium, and MLB.com. He lives in Athens, Georgia, with his wife and 2 sons. And we do have copies of his books available for sale at the desk. You can get after the event. I'll remind you that. Welcome our fantastic guests for the evening.
I can't emphasize enough before we say, I do a lot of bookstore events. This is the platonic ideal of a bookstore. This is a wonderful, wonderful bookstore. You cannot come here enough. exactly what he's talking about, not just the greatness of the bookstore, but what it means for everybody here and everybody in the surrounding communities. This is what you dream of for a bookstore. You cannot support this place enough.
I got just a few bullet points, that's it.
Of course.
I'm not gonna.
I'm now done praising Left Bank. They're wonderful, but we can't make this is our event.
Okay, so we've already discussed your writing career, the work you've done, your work you're doing. So I'm gonna add a couple more things. When I was thinking about it, I'm gonna list all the places he writes for and I said, no, bullet point, pretty much writes for anybody who's gonna pay him.
The dirty secret is I will write for you if you don't pay me. Actually,
One thing
don't tell anyone that.
Sorry.
Is it on a live stream? Cancel.
One thing I want to promote that he does, because it's really one of the most wonderful things I read every week, because he shares deeply personal things about anything, including his family, his immediate family, his mother and father, his sister. You need to get to the Will Leitch experience on Substack. It's free, right?
Yes, free.
Yeah, and it pops into the email box every Saturday morning. I look forward to that all week. It's just really, really outstanding. Married to Alexa Stevenson, father of sons William and Wynn. He managed to work their names into the book, if you might have seen
The book is also dedicated to them.
Yes.
Which they were super not impressed by. I didn't give two craps. Hopefully someday, maybe.
Proud son, of course, of Mattoon, Illinois. Prouder son of Brian and Sally Leitch. We know that he lives in Georgia. The one secret I will tell, especially for you fans of the Illini, Will loves Georgia football more than he will admit.
That's true, but not more than the Illini, to be clear. I'm not a monster.
He's a film buff. He's a rock and roller. He's a podcaster, Seeing Red. And thankfully, he's my friend.
Thank you.
Before we get into this incredible novel, just was blown away by it. And as my wife said, she said, now, you're not just saying that because he's your friend. I said, no. There have been many books where I start, I can't finish. This one just kept me riveted. His character development was just remarkable. But anyway, you have said a lot of times, I don't think I've ever asked you about this. I think you said it actually in the acknowledgments of Times Comp. Yeah, sorry. Like you would rather write, family aside, you would rather write than do anything. And no kidding, and no, I'm not trying to be a smart aleck. All you do is write. And I'm a guy that takes pride in being prolific and busy. Right. But I don't know how you write all these exquisite pieces that cover a wide range of things. And I don't know how you do it in terms of the pure effort that's involved in this and how prolific you are. The quality matches the quantity. But why is it that it is your favorite thing to do, the thing you love the most? And when did that start? When did you know that was in you?
Yeah, honestly, thank you. One of the many things, I swear this is, it's funny, one of my favorite emails I ever got about Seeing Red was someone emailed me and said, well, I can't help but notice that you guys agree a lot. You guys agree a lot. And I'm expecting that, after that I was expecting it to be like so could you guys have some hot takes when you punch each other or something? But he actually said, she said, I got this email from a woman, and she said, I actually love it because it means it shows how much you guys respect one another. And you're not pretending. You're not like, we do not, our pre-show on every show is, all right, you ready to record?
Yeah, it's pretty much.
And there's not like hey, you take this thing and I'll take this thing so we can fight. And one of the reasons that is because Bernie is like me. You are a writer. And I see this particularly as you go more and more along, particularly along the internet world, as I've kind of followed for the last 20 years. I was joking with this. I was in New York for an event a couple of weeks ago. I ran into Elizabeth Spires, who founded Gawker, and I know her from back in the day. And of all there's a great joke. We all know the Gawker world and Gawker and all that went in Hulk Hogan and all the things that happened with that. And there's a Gawker oral history book that you can buy on Kindle right now. And I show up in it every 4 pages. And there's like they'll be like, here's that. And then like 3 pages will be of like a wild, out of control party. And everyone's just like, oh yeah, I can't believe, oh, and here was this person, and then this person. Oh my God, and Paris Hilton was there. And there's like all sorts of stuff. And then they come to me and I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry, I wasn't at that party. We were supposed to work, right? I thought that's what we were all doing. And I was talking to Elizabeth Spires about the idea that like we got into this to write. And it was weird how many people, originally from the original internet age, that are now podcasting, which, hey, I'm from podcasts. But they also don't write. I did another podcast with LZ Granderson, great columnist from Los Angeles Times, and worked for ESPN for years and years. And one of the reasons that the thing that he shares with me and that Bernie shares with me, and my favorite people to talk to share with me, we write. We write. And I think sometimes writing is seen now as some sort of like, oh, I still use a typewriter, you know, and like, but writing to me is it's the fundamental thing. I'm telling you right now, as I'm saying these words in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm typing them out in my, okay, that's a left-handed word and it falls into a right-handed word and the space bar goes there. Like, that is how my brain works. And, you know, one of my heroes growing up, one of my primary readers growing up was Roger Ebert, the former film critic for the Chicago Sun-Times. He's from Champaign, Illinois, and of course I'm from Mattoon, which is about an hour south of there. And to me, it was remarkable because, you know, now Roger Ebert is thought of correctly as this great writer, but I didn't know him as that at all. I knew him as that guy that was on television at 5:30 every Saturday, that was from where I was from, but was on television across the country, and was not on it for being inherently telegenic. He was just smart. He was smart. I was like, okay, I don't know what that guy's doing, but I'm going to follow that. He's a writer? Oh, awesome. You worked at Illinois? What? He works for the Daily Illini? I'm going to do that. And so, and all of that was based in writing. One of his great quotes is, do not wait. The muse does not wait for the act of, the muse does not wait for inspiration. Now I messed up the quote. My God. I say this quote literally in every reading, and I mess it up. The muse, okay, I'm just gonna skip and go to the other favorite quote. What he learned from the Daily Illini, his favorite, this is why I should have had a glass of wine before I came here. I'll tell you my sister. I'm just kidding. But he has this great line saying he went to the Daily Illini and learned his 3 favorite words from the English language, which were by Roger Ebert. And I always kind of appreciate it. That sounds egotistical. What it really means is you get obsessed with the act of making things and having your voice heard. I have friends that are frankly currently on strike that are involved with the Writers Guild, and that they are doing a wonderful thing and they continue to fight for it, and I support what they're doing. But I could not do that because I don't write things, and Bernie, I'm assuming you probably would feel somewhat similar.
Yeah.
I don't write things to get in a committee room where everyone all gets together and decides whether my jokes are good enough to make it onto a show where no one will ever see my name on it. I write things because it's mine. It's mine. By Will Leitch are my 3 favorite words in the English language. And so I don't have that. The muse does not visit before the act of creation, but instead during the act of creation. I knew that. Quite right eventually. And that's exactly, which is another nice way of saying just shut up and start writing. And one of the things I admire about you and my favorite kind of writers, and LZ's like this, my favorite writers are people that sit down and just start making things. You'll figure it out later. So it will be better. Another great Ebert line was the idea that you can't get too beloved with your words. This is an old newspaper blog connection. You can't get too caught up with like, oh, my precious words must be perfect. Because tomorrow a bird is going to be shitting on them. Right? Sure. Like at a certain level, it doesn't make that big a difference. And so for me, that has led to me the joy of it. I think through writing, as you may have noticed, I just forgot one of my favorite quotes of all time. You listen to the podcast all the time. Sometimes I go down this angle, and sometimes I go down this angle, and sometimes I think of this, and sometimes I go down here, and you're all nodding, being like, yeah, it's really annoying when you do that. But for me, the great thing about writing is you don't see me go through that. You see the mistake. You see me go to this locked door, be like, oh, darn it. Because you clearly hear it on the podcast. I've got an idea. I walk into a door, like, it's locked, damn it. Okay, I'll go back and then I'll go here and I'll fix it there. The beauty of writing to me is you don't see me go through that process. I just get to fix all that problem and just write straight through it. So for me, this is where, I don't know if you feel this way, Bernie, but like, I find joy in, there's so few things in the world that are yours. And if you read something that I wrote, whether it's the book or whether it's a New York Magazine column or it's an MLB column or whatever it is, it's mine. Like it's mine. Like you can read it, you can think this is stupid, this is a horrible thing. Why is anybody reading this stupid thing? But it's mine, and I can stand behind it, and I'm proud of it. And so I'm addicted to that. I'm addicted to by Roger Ebert. You have to feel that way.
But I
right?
do, yeah.
Yeah.
I have to write. I mean, I just have to. And this is self-serving. I don't mean it that way, but I really do more than I need to, really. I just want to give people just more and more and more. I just want, and then also whatever psychological damage I have, writing it soothes it, heals it, you know? I mean that sincerely. And
do you feel compelled? Like, do you feel like I feel like if I don't write, I have friends,
Yeah.
I'm a runner, and so if I don't run, I feel like kind of all day. And as a writer, I feel like if I haven't written, I'm just, like I haven't scratched it.
today, we had, family visit, and I had to run an errand, and we had this, and I wrote one piece for, Scoops Getting Back, and I couldn't do it right. I couldn't do it the right way, and it's okay, but it's like, I was like sort of just, the whole afternoon, I'm like, that was really bad. I
You're
should've
itching,
just-
right?
Yeah, I mean, it was bad because I didn't have the time to do it, but anyway. How did you get the idea? I mean, for how the time has come, because it came easy for me to say. It came very quickly after How Lucky. So again, it's definitely a reflection on your work ethic and your itch to write. But where did you basically come up with the idea, and more specifically, the format of this great book? Because the format was just wonderful. I wish every book had it like that.
Well, so I don't know if you've not read How Lucky is it's a very straightforward story. There is a first person narrative telling you exactly what's going on in real time, and you are feeling actively in that experience as it happened. And that was very exciting, and it felt, as someone that writes a lot of first person essays and writes a lot of first person columns, it came easy to me. It was not easy, but it came, it was on brand, I would say. And so what I wanted to do, and How Lucky was very successful. It was more successful than I freaking thought it was going to be. And Stephen King, here's what I know about Stephen King. Here's how that happened. Because Stephen King literally was unbelievably praising of How Lucky in a way that is bewildering and confusing me till this point. And that happened. I don't know Stephen King. I still have yet to have a conversation with Stephen King. I've yet to have a single conversation with Stephen King. But this, to me, tells you all you need to know about Stephen King. Stephen King has probably sold more books than anyone other than Matthew, Mark, Luke, and or John. Right? And he is one of the best-selling authors in the world. And he's also, he's in his 70s, and he doesn't have to do anything anymore if he doesn't want to. And by HarperCollins, who bought How Lucky, sent the book to him like they sent it to a lot of people. They sent it to Hopen, someone, this no-name, one of the great jokes of How Lucky is that my editor has no idea that I write about sports. I mean, he knows now, but when he bought the book, he's like, wait, you write about sports too? I'm like, yeah, that's actually kind of the thing I'm mostly known for. And which to me is great, because that's exactly what you want, right? Like I wanted to be different. I wanted to be, but anyway, so he sent the book out to Richard Russo has said a very nice thing about it, and Carl Hyacin and Kevin Wilson. And it was very, very fortunate. But Stephen King, he sent it to Stephen King. And I'm sure there was a stack to the ceiling of people like me sending books to Stephen King, or my editor sending books to Stephen King, that I'm sure he never got a chance to look at and never really cared one way or the other. And what all of a sudden out of nowhere, my editor had just assumed he's never picking this up. He's never gonna look at this, why would he? And then at like 1:30 in the morning, my editor got an email from Stephen King being like, I think the exact quote is, "Holy shit, what is this book?" And I think that speaks I'm glad you like the book, but I think it speaks more to, think about it, you're Stephen King, you've sold billions and millions and millions and millions and millions of copies. You got nothing to prove to anybody anymore. And he still loves the form so much and loves the novel so much that he will just, off that endless stack that goes to the stealing, will be like, I'm just gonna give this a try. That is remarkable. I don't think I'm gonna do that if I sell 1 billion copies when I'm in my 70s. I think that speaks to how, what everyone's, I grew up reading Stephen King and I love Stephen King and I think he's still writing great books now. But like, even if that genre is not your thing, the idea that he would be so open to just pick up a book and say, let's see, and then love it and then want to support it in a passionate way is really kind of incredible. And so because How Lucky had gone well, it was clear that we were going to do some more. So I signed up for a 2-book deal with my editor. And the next book I knew I wanted to be less first-person essay and more ambitious and I really wanted to kind of capture, I don't know if anybody knows or not, but we just went through like a huge freaking pandemic thing. It was like a whole and it's weird it's a weird thing to say because honestly, like, I think we're all still kind of this book is not a pandemic book, to be clear as possible. Because as my publisher told me, if you call this a pandemic book, I'm gonna shoot you in the face. Like, you do not call it a pandemic book. It's not a pandemic book. But it takes place in June of 2021. And the idea of specifically setting in that time is we've just gone through something very traumatic. And whatever your thoughts on it were, we all went through different things. And not just the pandemic, but of course everything that came with it, and George Floyd and all the things that we all dealt with in 2020, mostly in isolation. And June 2021 was a time where you were getting your shots and you were going to be able to rejoin the world. And like, there was this, and like, I don't have to follow every tweet from the president, and like I can just chill out. Like, I wrote a piece for the New York Times about this last weekend, but like there's a line in there that talks about like one of the implicit promises of the Biden administration is that like, I don't have to think about politics for a while, right? Can you just like make sure the trains run on time and kind of just go hang out with my family and see all the people I haven't seen? That's one of the implicit promises of it. I think June 21 was like very specifically right in the strike zone of that time. And so I wanted to send a book about people who have gone through that and gone through all the things that they've learned about themselves. And frankly, have kind of lost their mind a little bit, like we all kind of lost our mind during that period. And what they've learned about themselves and how they've been able to battle moving forward. And the general lesson that you learn from that, which is, if there's a theme to the book, the theme is generally nobody is at their best right now. And you need to be aware of that about everyone. And the dirty secret about this book is the way I really want to sell it and the way I really want to tell people. And speaking of the pandemic book, the publishers do not like it when I say this, but this is exactly what the book is. It's a feel-good book about a shooting. You cannot go on the Today Show and say that. But that's what it is. Like, it is about all of the things that we've all kind of been through and all that we've seen, and how all of the things, when you think scrolls across your news screen and you're like, oh, that's horrible, that's just terrible. But those are actual individual human beings who have actually, their lives have led up to that point, and they will be known for that forever. And what it means to be in the middle of one of those things, what it means to follow. The premise of the book is essentially there's a woman named Tina Lamb who has gone through a lot of personal tragedies, had a lot of personal issues, and during the pandemic she's inspired by that woman that stormed the Capitol, but was not doing it because she was trying to stop the steal. She legitimately thought that there were children in cages in the bowels of Congress. And I'm not forgiving her because it was bad. Don't storm the Capitol if you get a chance. Don't. But I was empathetic to the idea of this woman had gone, was so lonely and so damaged and so lost that she just went, she was pushed in these certain places. And I felt like it was a larger metaphor for kind of what a lot of people went through and had to fight through and deal with. And so she announces at the beginning of the book, I know something's happening at Lindbergh's Pharmacy on June 24th at 5:24. I'm just letting everyone know this is my last testament. I'm letting you know, here's what I'm doing at this time. At 5:24 on June 24th, I have to stop what's happening. There's a Pizzagate element to it. I don't think there's any question about it. And then we follow 6 people throughout that day and leading up to 5:24 at June 24th at that time. And so the idea of it was basically to, listen, I don't like writing plots. This is my dirty secret. I actually like people. I find it's very weird for me when people do like, here's my plot to the book. Yeah, but like, how do the people react to the plot? I don't care. I've got my plot. Like, I like people. I like writing about people. I think people are more interesting. So I thought it would be, I was trying to almost trick the audience into caring about people, and even if they don't have plots going on, because every single one of those 6 people, you know, this is happening. Something is happening with them at 5:24. So you follow them throughout their day and see how their lives connect, and I'll come on that. So that was the structure. The structure of it was almost a way to trick the audience, the reader, into being willing to invest themselves in, I wouldn't say banal, hopefully it's more interesting than that, but the basic, normal, everyday things that are actually very dramatic. Someone told me the other day that someone asked me, they said, so how do you make things interesting to your characters? And whenever I meet someone on the street, and I ask them like, hey, what's going on? And they're like, oh, nothing much. It's the biggest lie in the world. Everybody has something going on, and it's a huge freaking deal because it's their life. And it's very easy to do the small talk, be like, oh, it's fine, it's cool, it's fine. But I don't know what's going on with all of you right now, but I know it is big, because it's big to you. It's big to you, and that totally matters. And I don't think of things in the idea of it always feels artificial to be like, okay, so she's like a single mother, but she's fighting for this. And it always feels like you're talking about things demographically rather than personally. And so the reason I structured the book that way was to get people invested into the individual stories, which are also very dramatic. All of your lives are dramatic. All of them. I don't care what you did yesterday or what you did tomorrow. The things that you are going through are huge. They're totally massive things that are happening with you right now. And just because you're and listen, we all want stability. We all just want to have to not worry. We all reach a point where when someone asks us, how's everything going? You're like, everything's fine. They're like, oof. That's how you feel in your 20s, right? It'd be a nightmare to say in your 20s, to be like, everything's fine. But the whole point is that everything is dramatic in everyone's lives. And so I wanted to get people invested with that period of time while putting a clock over the head, because we know they're in peril, even if they don't know they're in peril. And so that was the idea of the structure. That was too long of an answer, I'm sorry.
No, that's great. The way you began the book was it kind of blew me away, because you didn't reveal the actual literal ending,
right?
But you introduced Miss Lamb, and you can tell man, she has been through a lot. And of course, that first section is written in her voice, all the trauma she's going through, how mad she is for a lot of reasons. And by the way, things were not easy for her. It was really kind of unfair in a way that all the things piled on her. But I'm like, damn, Will's leading us to know this is going to go to a pretty upsetting place. And this is what I was going to ask you about too. Yet throughout that wonderful book, I had great empathy for her, even though she does a bad thing. But I had empathy for her. I can't explain why. But and listen, what people say about you is 100% true. I know you well enough, and I read you. You are just flowing with empathy, and that's a wonderful thing, because I think that's there isn't enough empathy in the world, and I love the way that you lead us into these characters and the way you take us into their lives, and literally even the thoughts in their head. And you're right, there's not a lot of small talk probably. So how do you, I wish I could write like you, but how do you, you have these rich characters and all of them different story, different background, different station in life. How do you manage to tell their stories in a way that I think just about everyone who reads this will love every character, even warts and all? Like, how do you manage to pull that off? Because I'm just like, and then you even have like side characters like Lieutenant Anderson,
Yeah.
you know? And I'm like, so, you know, you even bring in other characters. Hey, come on in and let me, and it's like, how do you do that? Because there would be a danger of sort of making them into cliches or something. And I never felt that way once. How do you manage to do that, to get us to care about their lives and their predicaments?
Well, and I want this, by the way, it is 7:33 and I want plenty of time for Cardinals questions. So don't worry, I'm not going to be too much longer on these. But I will say that, like, one of the things I think everyone kind of discovers as they get older is their life is a lot less interesting than they thought it was. And I mean that out of love. I think my life's very interesting and I think I'm full of stuff. But like at a certain level, one of my favorite things that people have say about this book is like, I don't know which character is Will. I'm like, that's exactly what we're going for, because they're all so much. Well, there's elements. There's certainly elements. There's certainly elements of certain characters that have parts of me. But I would say that, like, I mean, come on. Like, I get up in the morning. I take my kids to school. I go for a run. I talk to Bernie on Mondays, and then I ride all day. And then I pick them up and I take them to the league game, or I take them to the practice, or I watch the Cardinals game, and then I go to bed. Like, I don't live a particularly dramatic life. And that's good. I lived in New York City as a single person for 10 years. I've had all of the drama that I need. I worked for Gawker. I've got plenty of drama. I don't need any of that stuff anymore. And so it's fun for me then to see, I like living to other people more. I feel like I knock on wood, because you never know what kind of terrible things may happen or may not happen, but I feel like I'm in a good place in my life, and so I find my life kind of dull in a very happy, sort of pleasant way. And I have my own dramas, I have my own things, and I'm sure my sister or if my wife were here, she'd be like, yeah, you don't give yourself that much credit. but certainly I feel at a certain level that it's fun to live through other people. It's fun to watch, to see the things that, like, all 6 of these characters are very different, but hopefully they're all very recognizable and have things that drive them in specific things. A lot of this came from How Lucky. How Lucky was written from the perspective of someone who has spinal muscular atrophy, which is a disability that I do not have. And so it was inspired by my son's best friend, who does have SMA, and I kind of spent a lot of time with him and his family and a lot of other families with SMA, a lot of people with SMA. That's where the journalism part comes in, where you like research it and try to get it right. But more to the point, like, for me, it's more interesting. I just find other people more interesting than I find myself. And so it's more fun to write about people that are much more different than me. It's very weird. I've been reading a lot of Philip Roth lately, and Philip Roth is a wonderful, wonderful writer, but every single one of those characters is Philip Roth in one way, shape, or form. And that's great. And I'm just saying I'm a little bit more evolved than Philip Roth. I'm just saying. No, I'm just saying, what I mean is that, like, at a certain level, that's not why I do this. Like, it's not interesting to me to write about my obsessiveness and the things that I care about. I get that out when I get to write about the Cardinals. I get to do that then. For me, the fun of fiction is to imagine what other people are going through and be empathetic and try to understand. My fundamental thing that I feel like I learned about myself during the pandemic, because we all went through the things. There's some woman that's the mother of one of my son's best friends who, like, literally went full Stop the Steal and went full crazy banana pants during that whole thing. And at a certain level, one option would be to look at her and say, "You're dead to me. Get away from." And I get it. Emotionally, it's satisfying, right? At a certain level, it feels good. It feels good to be better. And it feels good to be like, I'm on the good side. and they're on the bad side, and we need to fight them. And I understand the instinct. I don't even necessarily think it's like I get it. Like that's what they're doing, so like I understand. But at a certain level, that's not like I live in a day to day, and like I don't know how it helps anyone to just say you're a shithead, go away. I'm better than you, and I feel like that was how I came out of the pandemic, seeing people who seemed very plainly suffering, and that was kind of manifesting itself in ways that were different than the way that I see the world, but I don't know how it helps anyone to look at them and say, yeah, well, I owned you on Twitter, right? Like, I don't know how that helps anybody. And so you try to get the perspective the best you can. Okay, we will talk Cardinal stuff, I promise. One more question, and then we'll take Cardinal questions. Okay, well, fine.
No,
I'm not going to tell Bernie Miklasz not questions to ask.
Do you, maybe I won't have one more question, because I'm not taking a shot. You cover so much ground, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
People want to hear you talk about all this stuff, right? You said this, and I have to, it's not based, your characters aren't based on any individual, nothing's based on you, but I'll be totally honest.
Yeah.
When I was reading this, the father and son relationship, it did, I'm sorry, but it did kind of give me.
That's probably the one that's the closest.
Yeah, I love Jason, the father. I love Jace, the son, and he was more of an athlete. But I mean, I just could tell, because I know your father well enough, and I know the kind of man that he is, a wonderful man. But when I was reading that, there were so many parts of that relationship would make me smile, because I know about your father, and I obviously know about you, and I know when you're growing up, you didn't want to disappoint your father. Your father's a wonderful man, but he laid down things, and he could be a little hard-headed, I guess. I don't know, but I smiled because I saw traces there. Because I think the world of you and your dad, and I don't know your mother as well, but
She's also awesome.
I know Brian Leitch very, kind of well. So anyway.
Yeah, I think the most personal parts of the book are probably, there's two characters that are probably most closely related to my personal thing, which is one, Jason, who's I think I've joked before that Jason is my dad with worse politics. And no, I don't know, he's getting older. I just he's got three brothers who are constantly sitting in Hunter Biden books. So maybe it's only a matter of time.
Well, what's wrong with that?
Nothing, man. Just trying to root out corruption.
Yeah.
And then my mother is, like, I would say that there's a sixth character in the book named Daphne, who was in the honors. And if you've read How Lucky, there are two small characters in How Lucky that are larger characters in this book, and one of them is the nurse. I'm not gonna say at what point in How Lucky that she shows up, but there's a nurse that's a semi-interesting character that just kind of is in passing, and How Lucky is a larger character in the time of Scum, bless you. And my mom was an ER nurse for 35 years, and I think that I've always been kind of obsessed with the idea of that job, right? Because at a certain level, on one hand, you are seeing people at their absolute worst and their most desperate, and you have to be caring, and you have to help, and you have to be there for them, and you have to help, and you are there when they need you most desperately. You also cannot take that home with you every single night, or you will go insane. The character named Daphne has a moment where she literally has to put her hands inside the body of a 10-year-old boy to keep his heart beating after there's been a shooting incident. And that is directly something from my mom came home from school one day. Well, I came up from school, and though at this point, and she came home from the hospital, and I was 13. I was maybe about 14, 15. I was like, I liked that Amanda girl, but she was so terrible. She didn't like me. Class was so long, and everyone always gets me. And I'm serious. I know that the coach is gonna play me. And I was like, well, Mom, what did you do? And she was like, well, I pumped a kid's heart today to keep him alive. It's like,
Right. I'm gonna go hide my room and shave. And that is literally happening constantly at every hospital or caregiving place across the world all the time. And, I feel very fortunate, but also generally kind of sheltered. I sit at home and I type all day. And I talk to people and I do interviews and I get sources, but I don't interact with people at their most desperate. And I try to take this across any field, whether it is a nurse or a doctor or a police officer or a firefighter, people that come into contact with people at their most desperate and at their worst. And I'll put it this way, I did an interview with my friend Tim Gerson, who I do the other lesser podcast with, about movies. And he interviewed me about the book, and he said, I couldn't help but notice that there's a nurse character in the book, and I was reminded of your mom. And Daphne's different than my mom. My mom is not a lesbian, for example. As far as I know, maybe she'll know stories that I don't. But I would say that I love the idea. I've always thought, if I ever get, I don't want to make this politically charged, but if there's ever something that I wrote at Deadspin that just gets me destroyed and canceled forever, and it's certainly possible that it was 2005 and 06. I'm sure there's something stupid I wrote. And my career falls apart and everything collapses and it's all over. I would be a nurse. That feels like something that feels like you help people. You literally every day. And I'm envious and empathetic, and so I would say it's funny. I've heard people, and you're right, that the Jason character has a lot of my dad in it, but I really think Daphne, if there's more a close connection, it'd probably be Daphne and my mom. And though Daphne was nicer, Daphne never, unlike my mom, Daphne never got mad at me for coming home late. But I guess she hasn't met me yet. She's also fictional. Okay, we should do Cardinal stuff?
Sure.
Okay, so do we have any questions? We don't do Cardinal stuff. If you have questions about the book, that's fine. But if you want to ask about Cardinals, this is the time to do so. Because we're recording this, we'll see if the sound sounds okay for the podcast. If it sounds okay, we'll post it. If it doesn't sound okay, I'll just have this to fall asleep to every night. Okay, yes, sir.
So,
What's your name?
Jim Comas.
Jim, yes.
So you're talking about you're basically a student of humanity, of people, and you're observing people and writing about people, student of human condition, all of our brokenness. You're kind of exploring that, and we've been through this hard, disruptive, devastating time, and it's hard to have hope for the future. And I wanted to, so you said this was a feel-good story. So do you, in your study of humanity and our brokenness, what is redemptive? Or is there a are there redemptive moments or sites of redemption? And go.
So I will say this thing.
So I'm not going to give away anything at the end of the book, but I will say one of the major inspirations for the book was I actually went to a Cardinals Braves game at Truist Park, and I remember this in my newsletter. And I went to and Truist Park is not as bad as Cardinals games are, where the lines completely around the block. One of my favorite things about Cardinals games, by the way, is that literally 2 hours before the game starts, people all lined up around the corner. This is why I don't want to hear Marmol being they don't take this harder than I do. They're literally outside for 2 hours right at the end of the game. So it's not quite like that in Atlanta. I'm sorry, Smyrna, not Atlanta. But it's not quite like that, but there is a line to get in. So I went to a game with my dad and my son, and we were waiting in line to get in. And about a little bit in front of us, about 10, 15 feet, some older man it was really hot, and he got really upset. He got really went down. He kind of went down as one does in the heat. And in that moment, this is a line, this is a random smattering of humanity. There is no organization. This is not members from the ACLU all getting together or members from a Christian community. These are just random people in line at trying to get into a Braves game. Once he went down, almost instantly, unspoken, people got into motion. People got into motion. There was a crew that immediately surrounded him. Someone said, "Get him some water," and they ran over and got him some water. Someone goes like, "I'm a doctor," and like came and tried to help him. And security, like, "Get security." They all came over and they came and they got him. And he was fine, but they got him out of there and they got him cooled down. And it was a really scary situation. And people instantly leapt into motion and they got him off of there, and they went right back in line. And they went right back in line, and they're like, cool? All right, now back to what we were doing. To me, that is what humanity actually is. And I don't want to give away, like, there's a moment where this pops up in the book, where that was the thing that really, like, that's what this book is about. And that's my general philosophy. Like, listen, we all are driven by fears. We all have our things. We all turn on the news and see this thing that you're supposed to be scared of. And if only someone would stop reading that book or stop or do whatever, it would fix all the scary things. And but like, I think that is partly performative, partly trying to feel better about the people that you're around, and partly just fear. Like, it's fear. Like, but when pushed in that moment, someone needed something, a stranger. No one got like a point, no one got a like for helping out that person. They just, in the minute, were like, something happened and people instantly got together, helped the person, got them set, and then went right back to what they were doing. To me, that is what people actually are. And I think that we lose that because one of the things that, Bernie, you know this, for years the media is it will happen forever. The media will always be yelled at for, well, you focus on the negative. You focus on the negative. And on a certain level, that is actually true because negative is news. Like, you never like turn on the 5:30 afternoon news and they're like, everything's fine, go back to your dinner. Right? Like, that's no one's ever gonna do that. Like, no one's ever gonna like, the whole point of news is about change. News is about something different. News is about normalcy being interrupted. And now we live in a social media age where now it's fun to watch everyone else do the thing that people were constantly yelling at the media for doing. Because honestly, you never go on social media and be like, "Hey, someone held the door open for me today." That's nice. Like, no, of course not. You talk about the things that are wrong. You think of the things that are different. You think of the things that are strange, the things you didn't like. That's what gets connections. That's what gets likes. That's what gets engagement. But that's not the way that people actually are. And I do believe that. My wife has an ongoing joke. She's like, I don't know. She's like, well, you know how you're going to die. Someone's going to stick you up, and you're going to die trying to appeal to their common humanity before they shoot you. So I'm aware that maybe, I don't know if I'm right about this, but I do think that. Like, I do. Like, you see a moment like that, and you're like, that's who we are. Like, that's who we are. Not this other junk and not all this, like, not that, like, nobody gets engagement for being like, everything's cool. I had a great day today. How are you? It doesn't scale. And so I think, so my viewpoint is always going to be, listen, I understand there's a certain amount of privilege, and I lived a good life. I've been very fortunate. I've had wonderful parents who have been great, who've supported me through many years of starving before I ever got anything through. So I understand that the perspective is inherently going to be a little bit skewed in that, but you see it in the wild, man. There was a group of people that had nothing in common with one another and had they probably, if you got them talking, would probably start fighting. But they didn't, because in the moment, they wanted to be good. And I think that's who people are.
It's a lot to do with the book too.
That's yeah.
The way, and again, I'm not giving anything away, but when it really did turn into an actual crisis, all this stuff that was building, to see the way that people who were total strangers read each other, I just had a sense of the moment, there was teamwork, there was people were more interested in somebody else's safety more than their own. I mean, there was a lot of great stuff there. So, see, I know that you're a great observer, so you saw that thing outside of Truist Stadium, and it did just give you an idea in your head. Like, it's pretty remarkable that people don't even know the political differences, you don't know the religion. Just like that.
I think it's who people are.
Yeah,
I honestly do.
I do too.
I legitimately think it's who people are, and it's a very unpopular thing to say
Yeah.
right now. But I honestly think that is who people are. And I think deep down, we all actually do kind of think that. If one of us in this room fell right now, just collapsed, the way that we're all supposed to see the world right now, to be like, yeah, well, good luck with that. And we all would go there. But that is obviously not what would happen. We would all take care of the person, and then there would be a group of people that none of us even know that would all be like brought in to come and get the person out of there, and they would take them to a room, to a building, and inside that building there would be a room where they would all come together and help that person. The payment for the whole thing would be a big headache. I'm not denying that. But at a certain level, I think that I sometimes have moments. I sometimes see this when I drive, doing a particularly complicated interstate interchange, where you're like, well, how did this happen? Like, it's amazing that human beings, like if one of us here collapses, there's so many people that none of us know that will totally take care of them and save their lives. Isn't that amazing? I'm not trying to be like dorm room stoner guy, but that's amazing. It's amazing that happens. And I just think that it's easy to get caught up in all the other stuff, in all the ugliness and all the divisiveness that inevitably happen. But if you just take a step back from it and realize when someone is in actual peril, people come together and help them. Paying for it, again, a problem. I'm not denying that I'm not supporting the healthcare financial system, but it's remarkable that happens, and I think that gets lost sometimes.
Real quick question.
Yes.
Do you have empathy for Stephen Matz? You see the true colors come out here.
44 million.
Stephen, for the record, 11 million a year isn't that bad. I think we're acting like it's full on, it's a bad contract, but if 11 million is gonna stop them from doing something, that's their problem, not Stephen Matz's problem, I would argue. And I think this is a part of baseball, right? We all know this. We all look we see Stephen Matz fail, and boy, have we watched him fail. We watch him fail, but he's the one that has to eat it. But the people that gave him the money, the people that made the decision to do that, and I have to admit, when they did the deal, I was he's gonna get some innings. Right? I wasn't entirely against the idea, but this is we should not be saying what a jerk. It's not like Stephen Matz said, I got the contract, I guess I don't have to care anymore. Awesome. I'm sure Stephen Matz is killing him to pitch like this.
It is. I mean, he's pretty much heartsick right now.
Yeah, exactly.
He feels like he's letting everybody down.
But if he walked into a room, we'd be like, there's Stephen Matz. But if Mo walked in, we'd be like, oh, it's Mo's here. Mo's here. Oh, Mo's here. Mo's here. And there'd be some booing, to be clear. But I do think that there is a notion that when a player, honestly, it doesn't kill us as much when Jake Woodford fails, because it doesn't feel like he's keeping us from anything. But Stephen Matz, when he fails, it feels like, oh, we could have had this with that money, which is not really fair to Stephen Matz, because the problem is the fact that they gave him that contract. And for what it's worth, I was supportive of that contract when they gave it to him. It is unfair to look at that situation and say there's another terrible. I like the contract. He had been really good the year before, and the big thing was that he didn't get hurt. That was the big thing with Matz. He would give you innings, and we've talked about this in the show before. 6 innings, 3 runs. That will win you a lot. If that's your starting rotation and you got a good bullpen, that will get you where you need to do. It was not unreasonable to think that Matz would give you that for 4 years.
No.
It just doesn't look like it's going to turn out that way.
But I think it is. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but that's all right.
I'm Peyton
Hey,
McClure.
Jill, you want to be the microphone person? Be open.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
You got it, you're good.
I think it is fascinating though, if you look back, because Matz was part of that Blue Jays rotation, as was Robbie Ray.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I mean, Ray's out for the season, right? I mean, I think he's started a couple games for Seattle, he's out. So I mean, you look back, like, I didn't follow as closely, but how hard did Seattle pursue both of those guys? I mean, how hard did Toronto try to keep Matz and Ray? I'd be fascinated to look back, but is Matz Brett Cecil 2.0?
It's also worth remembering, go ahead, Vanna.
That's why we got beatboxing, Vanna. It's also worth remembering, by the way, one of the first things that Steve Cohen, because he was with the Mets, Matz was with the Mets, one of the first things that Steve Cohen, that was a big controversy, was he was angry that the Cardinals had signed Steven Matz. He wanted to keep him, or he tweeted.
Right.
And they're like, wait, we're just tweeting about this now? He tweets like, oh, interesting. The Cardinals got Steven Matz. I guess you learned a lot about people now. And like Mets fans were really angry that Steven Matz had left the Mets. So I think that like, it's easy to look back now and say, and listen, for the record, if Steven Matz is able to do what we wanted Brett Cecil to do, I actually like. No, I would actually feel like that's actually the best I've ever felt about Steven Matz was when he was relieving last year, right? Like that's the best deal. He was really good. That's what made us think he could be a good starter this year.
He's still, he's still got a lot of time. I know he cares. I'm still holding out that he can be that good, solid starter. That's all. I think he's got it. It's always, his stuff is good. He's just throwing too many balls over the plate. That's up to him to fix. It's not Wilson Contreras' fault. It's,
But it does feel weird because it feels like at a certain level that like if we'll just put it here. Can you hear it? Can you guys hear it?
I know.
If at a certain level, like Matz, I think the mistake that they make is that like, well, we're paying Matz for a starter, so we better keep him as a starter. When if you could just be like, if Matt, like, listen, after they did the Zach Thompson thing, which again is weird, as you pointed out very smartly, the idea that you would be like, hey, no, we're like in the midst of this madness, be like, oh, Thompson, we'll just worry about him in 24. Like, no, we need like a lefty now. Like, we need like a lefty now. If you could have someone like Matz, like, I'll put it this way, if Matz is what we wanted Cecil to be, I think we'd be less angry at Matz, right? Like, so certainly it would be an overpay, there's no question. But you're telling me if Matz comes in and does what we thought Andrew Miller was going to do, or if what Brett Cecil was going to do, or what to me the platonic ideal Tony Fawcett did way back in the day. If he's Tony Fawcett and just comes in and like pitches an inning and gets lefties out, I would totally be happy with that. The problem is they won't take Matz out of the rotation because of the money that they're paying him. Right. That's the frustrating part. The frustrating part is not that Matz is struggling. It's that Matz clearly should be out of the rotation, but they won't do it because they're paying him. And now it's like, oh, Liberatore, one inning's fine. Yeah, one inning's fine.
I'll go back to the bullpen. We'll give you a start. I don't know, maybe 8, 7, 8, 9, 10 days from now.
No.
What is that all about?
So,
Tom Ferducci, who we both respected, a thing on the Cardinals resurgence, but even he said, like, what are they doing with Matthew Liberatore? The guy's ready to be a major league starter. Why are they moving him all around? And Verducci's point, and I think he's a really smart guy. He said, I've never liked it when any team brings up a guy that they gave up Randy Rosarina for him, and also have spent all this time telling fans, and rightfully so, look, he's really, really young. He's got to pitch in the minors. So he's finally ready. He's really, really good. Why are they've got this garbage rotation. Why are they messing with him? No, son, you go in the bullpen. And you would think because they gave a Rosarina up for him, they would be chopping at the bit.
It should be salvation.
Yeah.
It's where they were
It makes no sense.
They were desperate to show what Liberatore could do until they actually needed him. And he was doing great. That's weird. Yes. Come on, Dana.
Get our gentleman in the back too.
For the record, she's going to kick me in the groin about this later, and she will be correct too.
Hi, I'm
Beth Marchbanks.
Yes.
We drove from Columbia, Missouri tonight.
Oh,
so
my
we drove
goodness.
from SEC country.
Oh, of course, yes.
Yes.
Famously SEC country, yes.
Yes, famously now SEC country. So before I get to my question, you asked, why when we have such a garbage rotation are we having the money on Stephen Matz? I teach English at a community college in Missouri, and so I spent a lot of time teaching my students about logical fallacies.
Uh-huh.
And what we are witnessing here is a perfect example of the sunk cost fallacy.
Right.
The money has been spent. The money is there, but by putting him in the rotation, they're essentially attempting to get their money's worth
Right.
without realizing the money has been spent. It will be spent whether or not he's in the rotation. And so take him out of the rotation because otherwise you're just throwing away bad money. So anyway, there's a little bit of an explanation, I think, is that we all have the human tendency toward this sunk cost fallacy.
Now, the only defense I would give to that, which is you are obviously right, and I would never argue with the professor, but this is the same thing we've been saying about Paul DeYoung for 2 years.
Yes,
right?
we have a lot of sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah, like, come on, you're paying him the money.
Yeah.
Stop paying him the money and just
Doesn't matter.
get him out of there.
Yeah.
And now DeYoung, he batted fourth today, which is maybe a bit much. But I mean, I think DeYoung should be in the lineup every day right now. That's a thing. I'm sorry. My name is Will, and I think Paul DeYoung should be in the lineup.
I will.
That's a hard. Thank you.
Some more.
We all
I
came
guess
to
Rick Hummel wasn't the only one.
Yeah, I would like to have some Rick Hummel talk at the end of this, by the way. But yes, do you have a question?
Oh,
sorry.
My actual question was, so which Cardinal player then, because Bernie kind of stole my question, which I'm actually kind of honored by, because my question was going to be, which Cardinal do you have the most empathy toward right now, Mr. Empathy?
I would have said it would have been Contreras, but now I feel like he's got I didn't need my empathy now. Like I think he's beloved now. He is truly beloved now, in a way. Oh, thank you.
Jill Leitch, my sister. Yeah, give it up to Jill Leitch.
Sorry, I
And I do feel bad. Jill was literally named because when she was 4 years old, and they said, "What should we name her?" And my dad and I were like, "Let's make her Ron." She got stuck with Jill. I'm sorry. But anyway, I would say I'm empathetic to. I want to give. This is a hard thing to say because we got very frustrated by him. I want to give Jordan Hicks a little bit more benefit of the doubt. He was super young when he was. I don't think we ever talked about this. I don't know if we can put this on the podcast, but this is actually true. The story of I was at MLB Network one time, and we were talking about Jordan Hicks. And remember, Jordan Hicks was brought up way too early. He was brought up way too early. It was all really surprising. And apparently, we're gonna do a scene right deep cut because it's gonna be a good little moment to stomp on Mike Matheny. Apparently, this is what there are multiple sources that have told me this, that we will, probably shouldn't put in the podcast, but I probably won't screw it. It's his radio station. Apparently, for him being brought up, Matheny said, okay, he can be brought up, but he's gonna live in my house. Matheny wanted Hicks to live in his house as a way, which is very Michael Scotty, isn't it? Because that was the thing, is that yeah. He needs guidance. He needs to read the Matheny Manifesto. and literally Hicks was like, and went to his agents like, yeah, you're not doing that at all. But to me, Hicks has been through a lot as a Cardinal and has gone through a lot of things. Sometimes they've indulged him probably more than they should have, but also he's still 25? He's still really young. And I think that when you have the natural abilities that he does and but are entered into the majors so young, I'm empathetic to all this, but even though I wanted them to cut him a week ago. 2 weeks ago. Oh yeah, I want to get to him, but you have an empathetic?
It's probably a predictable answer. I had empathy towards
for Paul DeYoung when he was really struggling for those 2 years, because he really cares. I mean, I know him enough to, he's a really good guy, and he really gives it, in fact, to his own detriment, because he's always changing his swing. He's always like, oh no, let me try this, and let me, and he finally figured out he had to just radically transform his swing and his batting stance and everything else. In other words, this success he's having is not an accident.
Yeah.
I mean, all the measurables, like miles per hard hit rate, barrel rate, all this stuff is like way off the charts. So, yet it drives me crazy, and actually, it's my fault. It's one of the reasons I went on Twitter. It's like there are still, I can't put a percentage on it, people who absolutely hate him, even though he is having a great season. But every time he strikes out on Twitter, hey, what do you think of those two?
But I get it though, because there's a certain part we're waiting for the 1 for 30, right? We're all waiting for the 1 for 30.
I think he's.
Yeah. I think you're maybe wrong.
Because of that transformation of his approach and everything else. I mean, people should be happy. Any sports fan should be happy, even if a guy was dog food. Like, he worked hard enough to get to where he is. It's like, and he came along at a time where the Cardinals were having a lot of problems. I mean, a lot of problems, and their offense wasn't doing all that great.
And everyone groaned when he showed up.
Yeah, and he's been phenomenal. I won't get into the numbers, but he's one of the best hitting shortstops in the majors. Like, I'm not like 17th or 18th.
Yeah.
I mean, like top 5.
Right.
Be happy.
Central Illinois. San Real Central Illinois. Oh, we got you back there. We got you back there. Thank you, Jill. I'm sorry I drafted you into this.
Hey guys, first of all.
What's your name,
both-
sir?
Michael
Michael.
and G.
Hi,
You're both great writers. I've enjoyed reading you forever. And I have 100 baseball questions, but I'm not gonna ask a baseball question. Are We Winning is one of the 2 best Cardinal baseball books ever written. Bernie, you're one of the most honest journalists on the reporting Cardinals in town, in my opinion. But your new book, I started it last night, got it from the library. My kids laugh at me. But
Your kids should not laugh at you for getting books from the library.
yeah, we get the DVDs on Yellowstone.
Oh, no, that's
What are
great.
you doing,
Your
man?
kids
You
are
got
wrong.
money.
Physical, they're all going to regret when their favorite shows are gone in
Right.
15 years.
I-
And you've got physical media.
Anyway, I mean, it's about your new book. No, not a baseball question. I'm 60 pages in. Page 18 and 19, so it won't be a spoiler. You're introducing us to the old couple,
Dorothy and Dennis.
Dorothy and Dennis,
Awesome.
who Dennis recently died. And I had her read it, and she teared up.
It's early.
And
It's early. It's not.
She goes, how can he be in, and we all have a book in us, right? She goes, how can he be in his 40s and know about what us old people do? Like, we like morning sex. Like, how does he know that?
Well, first off,
That couple's great.
yeah.
Oh, they're one of my favorite parts of the book. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, first off, I mean, like, you have cameras in your home. So, just kidding. I can't speak to the morning sex part of this, but I do. One of the blessings that I have had, and is that my parents retired from. They lived in Mattoon, Illinois, and they retired and they moved out to Georgia, and so they wanted to be near their grandchildren, and they're with. I mean, I hope they're with their grandchildren right now. Otherwise, I don't know where my kids are. Hopefully, they're there. And to be able to, something actually very empathetic to my sister about, to be able, I was away from my parents for a very long time. I wanted to leave Mattoon, and I had to get away, and I had to get out, and go do stuff, and show them that I'm not the loser that they did not actually think that I was, but I'd imagined that I thought they were. They thought I was. And now that they are retired, to have them be, I mean, the last time my parents were a regular part of my life was when I was 17 years old. And to be able to see them, it's good. It's like, and it's good. I feel like there's an understanding of, there's a level of peace and a level of understanding that I had not seen from them when I was a kid. It was probably there. I was just too busy being a teenager to really notice. But I feel very fortunate. Like, one of the nice things about living, I love living in Athens, but I'm not from Georgia. And Georgia, like Athens, like any city,
it's cliquey. You know, you have people that live there forever, and so when you don't live there, you're a little bit of an outsider. So inevitably, I spend probably more time with my parents than I do with like a lot of people my age. And so, and also I'm like, I literally just get up and type all day. I'm very old by nature. And I'm not having a lot of morning sex, but just because my wife's very busy. And I'm really being super charming in the morning too, and it's still, she's really busy. Have I said too much? Are we still recording? Anyway, so thank you. I'm gonna be waiting for that question so I can say that on the podcast.
Okay, yes. That's right. And one more question. Yeah, one more. He says we're here for 2 more hours.
I will. My name's Jerry,
Yes.
Charleston, Illinois.
Mm-hmm. That's
And,
right.
so, Bernie, you don't know Will's mother, but I do. I worked with her for many years.
I know the last name of Jerry.
I recognize you.
Yeah.
You from somewhere.
And, it was always my dream to retire, buy a house in St. Louis and go to Cardinals games. That's what I'm doing now.
Outstanding.
I'm gonna call you out on the Jordan Hicks thing, because you kind of answered my question. My question was gonna be, I've listened to you guys for a long time. Wait for Monday so I can hear it. You guys were awfully hard on Jordan Hicks a couple weeks ago. And then I thought, I don't remember you guys being that hard on anyone until I heard you talk about Mosaic last week. You guys were pretty hard on it. So I guess my question is 2 parts. Are you having second thoughts on the Jordan Hicks things? It sounds like maybe you are. Second thing is, as reporters, writers, do you have trouble facing those guys, asking them questions? Because they surely hear about those kinds of things. And I'm just curious if you guys are, and I agree with every word you said about both of them, by the way. So I'm not being critical at all. I'm just wondering, how do those guys respond? You know, Mosaic, I'm sure he's heard or may hear of your discussion regarding, you know, Low Contreras.
The Vision Quest podcast.
Yes.
My God, what's happening podcast.
Yeah. So I'm curious how you guys handle that when you're honest, brutally honest, and then you have to face those guys and talk to them.
I feel like this is a better question for Bernie because I will be very brief to just answer my part of this. I'm the Deadspin guy. I just sit out in the corner and just take pot shots and say good luck with that. And believe it or not, I can talk myself into that. Like, I think there's a value in it. Like, I don't actually think I'm taking pot shots. I hope I'm not taking pot shots. I think it's more that I think there's value in having a further outside perspective and not being too involved in it. Whether that's right or not, it's probably also a little self-serving to be able to like, oh yeah, it's because I'm outside. I can see you better. I may be kidding myself in that, but to me, I don't think there's a better person to question in the world to answer this question than Bernie Miklasz.
You know, I think some of the stuff with Hicks was me just getting ticked off for years now, like broadcasters just go nuts every time he throws like 102 miles an hour. It's like, oh, this is, you know, it's like, come up and, you know, see the attraction. It's amazing. He throws 100. But guys, does he know how to pitch? And that's still the challenge, you know? And so I think some of that was just being irritated by the way he was being portrayed, like this great mighty pitcher. Listen, I've been writing sports for, on a so-called, you know, major league city level since 1979. I've been in locker rooms, every sport. I've had some real adventures in locker rooms. I've had people threaten to kill me, throw water on me, challenge me to go outside. There's stuff I probably can't even repeat. But just getting attacked by a football player. Always had a pretty good thing going with the Cardinals, though. But I really mean this, and I've never told him this. You know, Will Leitch has really influenced me in a lot of ways, but I've spent so much of my life in clubhouses and locker rooms. When I moved away from the Post-Dispatch, I was like, I'm going to do it my way now. I want to analyze stuff. I want to take well, you got to go to the clubhouse, got to get the quotes, got to do this, got to do that. Oh, I better be careful, you know. Don't want to be anybody mad at me. And I'm like, you know, you get to a certain age, and I thought I was always tough enough, but I'm going to admit it. I mean, I think everybody holds back a little bit, just a little bit. I didn't hold back much, but every now and then a little bit. Plus, you get close to people. Maybe you cut somebody a break.
Maybe someone you don't like subconsciously, you're a little harder on. And I realized, you know what, that's just not, let's just take that stuff out of it. I'm gonna write what I think, I'm gonna be in touch with people I need to be in touch with. I'm gonna research all my opinions and I'm gonna let it fly. Like, it's the old thing, theater critics don't like interview, the actors, they don't interview the cast, someone, I'm just thinking of other examples, like, every time you go have a meal, it's like, well, I must interview the chef. Why? You don't have to,
Does the food taste good or not?
Yeah, so I've eliminated that for the most part, I wanted to just tear down anything that's blocking me from being totally honest. But if I need to know something, I know where to go to get it, and that includes Bill DeWitt and, believe it or not, John Mozeliak. And obviously, reading me or hearing me, I don't hold back at all, I text Ollie every now and then, and he's fine, and I don't hold back. But the idea, especially the athletes, and this sounds crass, but
What's his number, Bernie?
in my opinion, this is not true of all of them. It's true of a lot of them. And I understand it. I don't resent them for it. They don't like you. I mean, they like you if you're saying how wonderful they are. And as soon as that stops, all of a sudden it's like, oh, so I'm an evil person now because I'm not writing every single time how great you are, right? Tony La Russa and I had an interesting relationship because we would get into it a lot. But we had this system because he said, like, well, I'm on the road and I don't feel like I would talk to you because you wrote this. I saw that. I said, well, here's the deal. I said, I'm going to give you this is funny, actually. I'm going to give you a special number. I have a cell phone or a mobile phone that I save for,
The burner.
the burner. No, it's got it. And I said, listen, I don't care what time of day it is. I don't care how angry you are. If you want to curse me up and down and call me names, if I get you angry about something I wrote, you call me and we'll talk about it. And you can holler at me. It's okay. I hate seeing you frustrated like this, but so here, have at me. It's fine. And you know what? He did it. So the like 2010, 2011 season, I'd get these random calls from Tony, and it'd be kind of along the lines like, listen, you and I get along pretty well. That was bullshit. You're totally wrong. You're just trying to stir up a bunch of shit. That kind of thing. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I wanted to do that very easily. Anyway, there's some other La Russa stories, but we actually developed a greater relationship because he felt he had the release valve 24 hours a day if he wanted to just holler at me. That's fine. That's the way it should be. I mean, we write and say what we want about athletes, coaches, managers. Well, they should say whatever they want about us. I've never taken that personally, never. So anyway, little insight there. I'm sorry I'm going on too long.
I actually have one more thing, sorry, before we go.
And sorry, I hate to do this, but like I've been very, very moved by some of the stuff that you've written about Rick Hummel this week.
3,000 words one day.
And I really should not be unremarked upon, not just Rick Hummel, but like legitimately, I betrayed you when I was on Derek Gould's podcast this week to promote this event. And literally I was talking to Derek and all of a sudden he's like, I'm sorry, well, I have to go. And I was like, yeah, dude, it's fine. And then an hour later he filed a story about Rick Hummel dying. So he had clearly just found out while we were discussing. He did an excellent job. And your stuff on that was very moving, and honest. I'm so glad you came out for this event, but like for me, like I sit next to Bernie Miklasz right now, and that is really exciting for me. And that is exactly why, is that honesty and that truthfulness, and that vulnerability that I thought that you wrote about with Rick. I don't want to make you go down the rabbit hole one more time, but what's it been like this week to in the wake of everything? You had the last conversation with him last weekend. In the wake of everything, Rick Hummel, obviously a legend, not just in the business, but really throughout St. Louis.
Just a sweet, sweet man, but also eccentric in the best way, that made him lovable. But listen, I've been, when I got the call, and I think I got the call sooner than just about anybody outside of family, I was just floored because I talked to him on my show Friday, and then he died the next day, basically. And he sounded rough on the show, and I felt bad that he was even on the show Friday. But he wanted to do it because that's Rick Hummel, loyal. And so that was like the last time anyone, publicly spoke with him. And I felt terrible because he sounded really, really bad. I was concerned. And the next thing you know, you get the call that he died. And I knew he had an illness, and I knew that, he had to fight through some things. I had no idea that this would just happen so quickly. I've been floored all week. I've been moping around the house all week. I mean, just moping around. I don't talk about it. I just think about it. I'm memories in my head, a million stories on the road. How many times he helped me? How times I saw him help other younger writers. He would always calm me down when he thought I was, getting a hothead, wanted to write something, nasty or whatever. I mean, he just, I don't know. It's a cliche, but there's never going to be another one like me, because it's just, not just that he was a great reporter for a long, long time, but the way he connected, Muhammad Ali, just you name it, Mike Krzyzewski, it's just like people, every walk of life, they considered him a friend. He had that appeal to, he had that appealing aspect, I'm sorry. And it's another cliche, but it's like the world's a colder place. It really is. I'm gonna miss my friends more than anything.
Right, well, thank you for that, and thank you all for coming. Thank you for Bernie Miklasz. I'll hand it over to the left bank folks, but if you have a book, I will devalue it by signing it. And thank you for coming, and I'm glad the Cardinals won today. We were a lot less grumpy.
You got canceled, actually.
Yeah. I was not gonna show. I was gonna. He was already. Anyway, thank you all for coming. Thank you much, and have a wonderful morning. Thank you.
Books are for sale at the front desk if you'd like.
Awesome.
Where's the timing? He's signing right here.
Oh,
And the books are for sale.
What would you like? Here or?
Whatever's easiest for you.